Okay, so let's suppose that we have an artificial intelligence system where 20% of the time it makes uh, errors and draws conclusions that are not only wrong, but are errors that are unlikely to be errors that human beings make. And another 20% of the time, let's suppose it makes errors, but are actually common errors that human beings are likely to make. And the remaining 60% of the time, let's suppose it's accurate and correct. But the most important thing is that it is able to originate new ideas, be creative, originate new ideas, come up with new hypotheses, useful hypotheses that can be tested, and some weaker scientific theories, or maybe even stronger scientific theories, prove uh, new, come up with solutions and prove those solutions, uh, originate new ideas. I'm being a little bit repetitive, but uh, and let's suppose that it can just basically accelerate science 10, 100, or even 1,000 times faster than what human beings can do with our current software tools and such. Something that really just has an avalanche of human discovery across the full spectrum of human knowledge, philosophy, science, the harder sciences, whether we're talking about the biological sciences or the physical sciences, astronomy, physics, or mathematics, from topics that are curiosity items, all the way down to solving diseases, solving problems that deal with our environment, um, or even political problems, or social problems, and basically be able to just really provide, to accelerate human knowledge in ways that really solve human problems. And it could be some things could be just recreational things or things that we're curious about, down to solving very practical, real problems and eliminating, you know, contributing to solving problems with poverty and increasing and increasing human prosperity. That, I think, is really the forefront of what would be, a really important goal with artificial intelligence. And it's not as important to nitpick about what is human level AI or whether or not it's as smart as humans. Because for a long time, for decades, for several decades, computers have obviously augmented our ability to uh, like get tasks done, do large information tasks, compute large amounts of scientific data. Something that if we didn't have calculators or computers, it would take human beings thousands of years to solve a lot of obvious problems. But in this situation, I'm talking about discovery. Now, we know that for a very long time, computers have been able to discover new human knowledge. If we go all the way back to like logic theorists, which not everyone knows about it, but some of you do. And logic theorist goes all the way back to 1956, where and if I got this correct, and I think that there's different things written about it are slightly different. But the last thing I remember reading about logic theorist is there was a certain section within a certain encyclopedia about first order predicate calculus. It's basic mathematical logic. There was a class of theorems. I think there was 51 theorems within that section, and the logic theorist was able to rediscover 38 of the first 51 mathematical theorems. In two of those theorems, however, it actually found shorter mathematical proofs than what the human mathematicians have found. Now, this is actually not only rediscovering what humans have already discovered, which really the only difference is that humans happen to have already found solutions to this. But if humans haven't, the AI would have still found those solutions. But in this case, it yes did come up with new knowledge because it found shorter proofs to two of those theorems that were not discovered previously by human beings. How significant is that? I don't know. But this goes all the way back to 1956. So we know that computers have been able to discover new knowledge for a very, very, very long time. That, in fact, was almost 70 years ago, and it was performed on the Joniac computer. Now, the Joniac computer, I tried to research and find out exactly what it was capable of doing, and I don't know. And so I'm just going to try to I don't know if I'm using the right term, interpolate or interpolate. I don't know how you express. It's the right term, but I don't know how you pronounce the term. I think interpolate, but maybe it's interpolate, whatever. Um, what its computational power was, because I can't find the specifics on how much memory it had, how many calculations per second it could do. But it ran on the Joniac computer in 1956 and did this. It found two shorter theorems and rediscovered 38 of the first 51 logic theorems within that. I think it was the second section. It was in one of the sections of one of the chapters of a particular encyclopedia on first order predicate calculus, as I had mentioned. And if we go back to 1951, the most powerful computer in the world could do 1,905 addition or subtraction of any 10 decimal digit numbers per second, or 525 multiplications of any two 10 decimal digit numbers, or 249 divisions of any two decimal digit numbers, floating point decimal. So it had 10 decimal digits, and it could include a floating decimal point per second, which is ridiculously slow today compared to modern desktop computers. I mean, modern desktop computers can basically do around 1 billion times, or even the highest end desktop computers can do a few billion times faster computation than what a powerful or a very big mainframe computer weighing 8 tons and requiring 125 kilowatts of electricity could do. And that's a CPU, not a GPU or a tensor processor. We're talking about CPU. So the CPUs in desktop computers are capable in some cases of doing a few billion times more, a few billions, that's a billion with a B, times faster. A desktop computer where the CPU is like not a whole lot bigger than a postage stamp. I'm not exactly sure how big those monster processors are. They may be as big as 800 square millimeters, which is a little bit over an inch on each side. Could do, and maybe require about 125 watts, or maybe a little more than that. I don't know. Maybe they require 250 watts. I don't know offhandedly. So they're at least several hundred times less. Require several hundred times less electricity. We can do billions of times the number of calculations. And a desktop computer today. There are probably cell phones where the CPU can do several 100 million times, or possibly 1 billion times the computational speed. And this is before we even get into what the GPU or tensor processing units can do within a cell phone or a desktop computer can do. Not to mention the incredible advancements in machine learning. But machine learning goes back a very, very long time. It depends upon how much we nitpick about what we call machine learning. But the ability to find proofs to mathematical theorems, in this case mathematical logic theorems, almost 70 years ago, indicates that machine learning is not new and has been happening for a long time. But it's what everybody refers to as narrow AI. It was something, nonetheless, getting computers to actually make sense and understand natural languages, natural human languages like English and Spanish and French or Chinese or Japanese, was a whole different thing. And the ability to get a computer to just explore printed text and make new discoveries is a whole different thing. So going back to the idea of an AI that, irregardless of whether or not we regard it as human level AI or artificial superintelligence or artificial general intelligence, the real question is how much can it accelerate human knowledge, and not just multiply information or useless information or somewhat interesting information, but actually accelerate human solutions. That was my interest for a long time. That is the biggest interest I've had in one of the two big interests. And then obviously the other interest, which I didn't get into at all yet, is obviously robotics. so-called what people like to say as physical intelligence, the ability for robots to just do regular everyday jobs, like being able to do housework, being able to build houses, being able to work in factories. And then, of course, with that, there's the ethical question of making sure that we're not just having certain people who have access to this technology and then having human beings become obsolete. And so we have this huge homeless population throughout the planet because only some people own robots or artificial intelligence. And you have this terrible divide between haves and haves nots. Hopefully, we have a transition into abundance that is shared by everybody, and that makes it kind of a challenging or difficult thing. But this has been my interest for a very long time in artificial intelligence. Aside from that, with working with what technology can do today, what can I do to prosper from AI? What can you do to prosper from artificial intelligence? How does it actually solve our problems? How does it actually enrich our lives? That's my interest in artificial intelligence. I'm not as interested in trying to have a debate or an argument about whether or not AI can be sentient or conscious or self aware. Those are concerns that I have, which can be open for a later conversation. My interest is in how can it not become a problem, which is going to divide us, which is another thing, divide us in terms of worldviews and philosophical views and even religious views about what a soul or a spirit is. And I personally don't feel prepared to deal with it if we actually have millions of robots running around in the environment where people somehow have them as companions or whatever, and now I'm supposed to somehow apologize for not being convinced that it's conscious or sentient just because it can learn and discover and have an intentional system built into it that resembles human emotions, where what drives its behavior and its learning behavior is an intentional system that resembles human emotions. It's capable of natural language. You look at large language models today and they're very good at having conversations. So if you just build in an intentional system that resembles human emotions, which drives its learning behavior, uh, how can you really distinguish that from a human being or a person? It's a surrogate person. I personally do not believe that that is a conscious or sentient being. But I'm not interested in having a debate about it. I don't expect other people to agree with me at all or disagree with me. Some people will agree with me and some people will not. And I don't want to waste too much time talking, having a debate about it, because it's something that I do not believe that I can ever make a case to prove or disprove one way or another about something like that. Um, but we might, there's the possibility that we might have to prepare for a world where that starts to happen, because I do think that AI can do that. Whether or not it's conscious and sentient is not the issue. I have no doubt that you can create like surrogate AIs out there that resemble human emotions, that will develop their own personalities, their own characters, and there's no reason why the AI would not necessarily believe that it is a person and is conscious, which makes it kind of scary thought, because that'll bring division in our world. And so I'm not prepared to deal with that. But I do look at the positive side of it, where we don't have to build AI that way. We could build AI where it doesn't have drives, where it believes it's sentient, it believes it's conscious, but instead we build into it an intentional system that serves other goals, where it can understand and empathize with human beings, but its intentions, the actual intentional system that's built into it, is driven to solve problems in the real world. And that's robots. So we have a bunch of robots that just do human labor, and it doesn't have to be a thing of slavery because its intentional system does not resemble human emotions. Well, anyway, I don't know where to go with this. Intermittently, however, I'm interested, however, in what AI can do right now and what are the practical possibilities of how it can contribute to my prosperity and your prosperity. Anyway, thanks for listening.